Embodied Performance Podcast, episode 37. I'm Nick Markey, beach barbell, physical therapy, strength training. Building out our gym over the next couple weeks. Having a launch promo and charity drive for Health Possible Incorporated. Check out beachbarbell.com for details. There's a button there that says launch promo and charity drive. You can check out the details there. So on today's Truth Tuesday, I want to dive into pain topic again. We'll title it, Does Hurt Equal Harm? So I've gotten a little bit about pain and how we understand it to work at this time. I think one of the biggest things is there's the assumption that if something is hurting, then, there must be perhaps something damaged. And even if you just look at just practical examples, we just know that's not true. For instance, lots of people have headaches from time to time. We don't tend to call a headache damage, which is interesting. They might take a little Advil, but just the narrative around a headache doesn't, equate to, oh my God, there's damage in my brain or whatever. Even the narrative just around that head, neck, shoulder pain, people might get when they get stressed. Even there isn't necessarily always damage. Oftentimes it's, I get stressed out. I carry my stress here. So it's kind of interesting that those areas tend to have that narrative around them. Whereas, somebody's having back pain, oftentimes, you get a narrative of, my discs, this, my nerves pinched, all these other things that just don't crop up with similar pain in the head and sometimes neck. Why is that? Culturally, it just has grown that the back is maybe this vulnerable structure. Discs, herniations, degenerative disc disease, those have just been assumed to be damage. Now, the question is that, let's just talk about disc degeneration, which is just scary, fancy talk for arthritis, which is just an aging process and probably is mostly linked to your genetics. It's a process that takes time to evolve. So if somebody started developing back pain at a certain point in time, oftentimes that kind of out of nowhere onset where it just gradually you start to feel it more and more. It's hard to pinpoint an exact day, but we'll say that, over a week or two, this pain is developing and they get an x-ray maybe after a couple of months and the x-ray shows back arthritis. Well, that will oftentimes be the blamed for the pain. Whereas if we took that same x-ray maybe a year before where the person wasn't having back pain, they could have pretty much the exact same arthritis. And why weren't they feeling the pain then? There's really you're never really given an explanation for that. Disc herniations, we have mountains of evidence suggesting that those don't necessarily incite pain. There's lots of people walk around disc herniations that don't have any pain. Just once someone starts having pain and they get some sort of imaging, then, they find something and it gets blamed. So some practical examples beyond the headache versus back pain, where we don't necessarily always think hurt equals harm. Even on the kind of the flip side is you have, maybe a kid who breaks his arm and then gets a cast on it. And within, a few minutes, he's probably running around with that cast, probably not feeling any pain. There's still a broken bone in there. So there is actually, damage in the bone. And there's probably signals coming from the nerves in that area up to the spinal cord into the brain saying, we have damage. But the whole system has decided that it's not necessary to have pain because perhaps, we've already gotten the issue taken care of. And the tough side with this kind of topic is that oftentimes, when someone's having pain, a big thing is feeling validated, like this is actually happening. And if you feel something, it's validated. It doesn't really matter where that thing is coming from. It's possible that it could be, like in the back, a disc herniation that's kind of driving the pain experience perhaps, but it's also possible that a disc herniation there isn't really involved. It kind of doesn't really matter, unless there are very distinct clinical signs. Keep going back to the back example, maybe the person's having very kind of specific or generalized leg weakness and shooting pain down their foot for quite some time, like signs that, the nerves down the leg are having trouble. So then there's now imaging that shows that that nerve is also being encroached upon by the, herniation or whatever. Those are cases where you might, want to do something about it, but a lot of times it's very vague. The imaging is kind of vague. Sometimes I've seen plenty of imaging where the person will have, pain, just hurting them, to death on one side, and the image shows, there's all these massive herniations on the other side, and they don't have any issue with the other side. And so you're sitting here going, okay, that's weird. But again, it just kind of drives home that point that just because there's what we might perceive as damage doesn't mean that there's actual damage, if we might actually, if we hurt. This topic, I've had some patients ask me, like, can I do this if it hurts? And so my usual response is, it's your choice. You can try it, see how it goes. Sometimes it goes well, sometimes it doesn't, but it's your body. When you kind of take a look at what options you have on the table, at first you have to say, okay, I'm having a pain. I should perhaps pay attention to this thing. If reasonable, I might try to work my way around it. If I can, modify what I'm doing in various ways, then that might not be a bad idea to maybe not feel this pain, whether it's actually damage or not. It's hard to say. And then from there, you try to move your life forward in any little way. You try this, you try that, try this movement, try that movement, try this activity, that activity, and you kind of test them out. And some will probably feel better than others. And, the ones that feel fine, you just keep doing those. And the ones that maybe don't feel as good, you kind of monitor those. And over time, you keep testing them and trying them, again, whether there's damage or not. I mean, the reality is that if there is damage, that is one, the main, say, cause of the pain experience, then, that damage is going to heal whether you like it or not. And if you stay more or less mobile within reason, it'll heal in a way that is probably going to help you have a better future using that area. And the pain experience, will probably be up and down regardless of whatever damage is there. Like I said, there's lots of cases where people feel pain in life. You fall down and slam your knee into the ground. It hurts probably a lot initially, and sometimes just within a few minutes you don't feel it. It's like, well, was I damaged and then just healed magically right away? There's lots of times where someone will be experiencing, having pain, maybe chronic pain. And when they get in situations where they are more stressed, their pain will increase, and they get in situations where they are, more relaxed or happier, their pain, can decrease. So it's kind of like, okay, well, there's not magical healing going on in that part that's, thought to be damaged, but, you could certainly say the context is changing around it. The relaxing situation, the person is feeling safer, less threat. And then the, more stressful situation, the person's feeling more threat. Lots of cases where people will have maybe an old injury and the pain will crop up from time to time. It's those old battle wounds. They'll get the flu, which is kind of like a inner body warfare. And, they'll have aches and pains, oftentimes directed in those old areas, Are those old areas more damaged because of the flu? Probably not. But, they're perhaps more sensitive compared to the rest of the body. So it could make some sense that you would feel it in those areas more. So the main thing to recognize is that hurt doesn't always equal harm. What you feel is what you feel. So regardless of where maybe the main driver or source is, if you feel something, you feel something, and you should, probably pay attention to it. It doesn't mean you have to stop doing everything with that area. Sometimes I've had many cases where, we would do challenging exercise for an area. It'd feel better, and it wouldn't feel worse later on either. So I think you just have to, unfortunately, it's always kind of the it depends answer, is you just kind of have to test it out. I recommend a systematic approach. If you're feeling some pain, you just try something maybe easy at first, and then kind of see how that goes. And if that feels fine, then you maybe go to the next level, or maybe try another angle. And so you kind of just gradually try each angle and slowly move it forward. Probably after trying a couple, a few, if you start to feel it a little bit, you might be reaching that edge. And especially if it's your first time kind of testing it, you might just stop a little early, once you start to feel a little bit, and then see how it goes over the next day or two. And if it's seemingly respond, decently over the next couple of days, then, next time you can dip into it and push it a teeny bit more. Whether there's quote unquote damage or, just sensitivity, or probably, possibly both, driving the pain experience, you're better off kind of still living your life. And, perhaps part of that could just be you're kind of showing that pain's, your defensive system, that things are okay. And just like putting the cast on the kid with the broken arm, you showed that it's okay. We got it protected. It's all right. So, it's just a better way, I think, to recover and respond, to a painful situation, is just try a little bit of movement and just, kind of gradually move forward from there. So I'll probably have to keep touching on this subject because, oftentimes when we start talking about this stuff with pain and sensitivity, sometimes people that deal with pain will think that they're being told it's in their head. It's, technically everything's in our head. The sounds coming from this phone, listen to this podcast, the light coming off the phone, like basically everything is signals that are transmitted into something in our brain. So that's the same thing with pain. It's just, we don't always know where the damaged tissue, quote unquote damaged tissue that's, driving the pain experience. Is it, some sensitivity in the nerves, touching that tissue? Is it sensitivity in the nerves, in the spinal cord? Is it sensitivity in the nerves in the brain? There's lots of different potential sources. Is it, certain links in the brain now that, feel a lot of threat with certain things? Like if you talk to a lot of people that have, long time pain, just even sometimes thinking or talking about, a move that makes them painful, they'll kind of start to, get a little bit tense, just so you're kind of looking at maybe like fear and anxiety, inciting it a little bit. So, there's all these little angles. And like I said, I think the best move forward is testing it out little by little in different angles and different contexts, with different people. Sometimes just doing it with a professional, trying it, those moves with a professional you hired was a different context enough that the body will be, okay, I think we're safe. We're okay. We got this expert, helping us now. So just different things to ponder. And again, I most likely will keep touching on this subject probably for the next several weeks and months, in different ways to just try to help drive this message home, because I think a lot of times people get stuck and, aren't living the lives, that they potentially could live, more happy, because they are kind of stuck and fearful that the pain is damaging, it's their damaged body and they shouldn't use it. And it's just not the case. So I think that'll be fine today. I've gone a little longer, coming up on 16 minutes here. So, again, I am Nick Markey of Beach Barbell, Physical Therapy and Strength Training in Wilmington, North Carolina, building out our gym over the next couple weeks, launch promo and charity drive for Health Possible Incorporated. Please check out beachbarbell.com for details. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.